So today I have been inspired by ice, as in the cold ice stuff. You know that ice stuff that we have? I've come up with 5 ideas being inspired by ice. And where has this come from? Well, I saw an amazing picture of a ice sculpture that was in Birmingham, and it was by Nelly, as I think it's Nelly Azevedo, N N Neleazevedo, Azevedo. And I apologise if I have said her name wrong, but an amazing sculpture in Birmingham. And it was these small, little tiny ice sculptures, 5,000 of them in rows on the steps in Birmingham, going up, I think, to the town hall. I think that's where it was, or up to the library area in Birmingham. But these little sculptures, these little tiny sculptures of men and women to commemorate people that was lost in World War One, all the victims and all the people that we've lost, in that war. And it was a stunning sculpture, and all these little sculptures. And what basically the artist did, she made these little sculptures, stored them in freezers, and then come and sat them on these steps. And you should go onto the internet and have a look at that amazing monument. And it was called the Minimum Monument to what Nelly Zero she did in Birmingham. But it struck me, these little ice pictures, and it made me think about personal development and ice, and what could we learn from just these little sculptures. Well, the first thing that became really obvious to me was that these sculptures were little people all together but slowly melting away. Now, we could be depressed by that, we could be upset by that, we could take a negative for that. No, I think what it reminded me of is how precious life is, and how precious it is to live in the moment. Because we all have our moments, and then our moments disappear, and whatever your beliefs are, your belief is, whatever happens after that point, I'm not sure. But if you have your beliefs, that's fantastic, and what you think happens. But these little ice figures all together slowly melting away, and it made me think about being in that moment, and just appreciating what's around, appreciating the people that are with you. And life, yeah, it melts away, but it doesn't mean we can't enjoy it, does it? It doesn't mean we can't enjoy those moments. It doesn't mean we can't be together and enjoy those moments together. So that was my first thing that struck me. And it just struck me that all these little figures were the same, and we're all the same, aren't we, in the world? We're all the same on the world that we live in, and we can all enjoy those moments together. So that was the first sort of personal development message I got from this sculpture. The second one for me was about that iceberg syndrome. I don't know if you've ever seen that. There's a chart, or there's a diagram that people draw, and they draw an iceberg, like typical iceberg shape, I think it is. And then people only see what's on the tip of the iceberg. They don't see the big foundation of ice, I suppose, below the iceberg. And that made me think again about what you perceive from people. So you might see someone who you feel is a bit grumpy, or you may feel they're a bit short with you, but you don't know what's going on underneath, do you? You don't know what's shaped, what's happened in their lives underneath, and all those things that could be happening. So maybe you give the people a little bit of grace, or give you a bit more time, a bit more understanding. And also, I think for me, the message of that iceberg that you see is that people see successful people. People see people who've got what they want, or achieving what they want, and are successful, who are famous maybe, or they've written books, or they've done this and they've done that. But what people don't see is all the hard work and determination that goes on underneath. All the time and the hours that were spent going into research, all the time, if David Beckham, for example, as an example, he's judged on how he kicked a ball in a World Cup, or wherever, or in a match. But that whole bend it like Beckham idea, where he took, since the age of 8 or 9, was practicing that shot over and over and over again to get that ability to curve the ball round. The Frosby flop was another sporting reference that had just come to top of mind, and that's where it was about pole jumping and going over the bar, and in a certain floppy way going over the top, and winning the Olympics based on that. And then everybody was doing it, but everybody forgets all the hard work and the training that goes on goes on underneath the iceberg. So tip number 2 is really, if you want to achieve that, that pinnacle, that tip of the iceberg, what's all the little things that you have to do underneath? And icebergs aren't built, by the way. They don't just happen like that. One day you wake up and there's an iceberg there. No, icebergs take time and cold water 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 on top of it to build that iceberg. And the core of the iceberg, it could have been there for thousands of years. So little thing to think about with your building your iceberg, building your skill set. And so the thing that people see above the water is, what are all the little steps that you have to do, and remember it over time. Number three in the personal development tip when I've been thinking about ice, you've heard the saying, haven't you? Breaking the ice. You've heard that saying, and we have things called ice breakers, don't we? Where you go to a corporate event and we have an ice breaker, and everybody has to say their name and think of something around their name, or you play human bingo, or you do chat and you throw a tennis ball. There's loads of them, and I'm sure some of them you're a bit sick of, to be fair. But for me, number 3 was breaking the ice about meeting new people, maybe, and maybe having a conversation. And here's a bit of a challenge for the people that are watching me. Why don't you go out the way just to introduce or say hello to 5 people that you don't know? Now, I'm not saying you go up to someone in the street and start chatting away to them. You can if you want. Sometimes people are a bit wary of that, but maybe just hello, how you doing, how's your day going? Think about those icebreaker questions that you could start a conversation with people. How are you? Oh, that's interesting. Well, what about this? Have you thought about this? Oh, I've seen that. Oh, I've read that. I'll give you an example. Yesterday I went to get my car valeted. I love getting my car valeted. It's a bit of a treat. And it's one of those things when you always do that thing is, somebody else doing it for 20 quid or me doing it for 5 hours, when somebody can do it very professionally for 20 quid and I get like 4 hours in my beautiful clean car. So anyway, I went to the guys that did it near where I live, and I just left them the keys, popped round to the shop and went shopping. And I come back, and the chap who'd been washing my car, who does a great job, basically said to me, he looked, oh, what have you been shopping? I said, oh, I'm buying this and getting that. And, oh, what are you cooking tonight? And I showed him I was making lamb. I was making a lamb tagine. Lovely. And he said, oh, I've made a lamb tagine before. Have you ever put apricots in it? Well, no, I might try that. And then we got conversations about when was the first lamb tagine that I ever had. And I told him the first ever lamb tagine I had was in Tunisia, loads of years ago, and it was by the train station, and I can remember it was like yesterday, and it cost I think for 2 of us and a beer 9 dinar. I think it was dinar at the time, and it was just very lovely. It was it was just beautiful. It was lovely, absolutely lovely, in a little backstreet sort of cafe. And me and this chap from the car wash had an amazing conversation, because he started with an icebreaker. He said, oh, what have you been buying? Icebreaker. So self-development number 3, if you need a little bit of confidence, you could do a little bit more confidence. You put your confidence coat on and your confidence cape on. Why don't you just say hello to 5 random people and have a chat? And that's your icebreaker. Or think about next time, if you are a bit, if you could do with a bit more confidence, think about, before you start to meet people, a couple of icebreakers that you could have ready to start a conversation with people, a positive conversation. And maybe if you're brilliant and super and amazing at confidence, and you've got that fantastic skill in your big skill bag and your tool bag, why don't you pop it in the chat and give us, share some ice-breaking tips? Wouldn't that be fantastic? Wouldn't it be fantastic if anybody's watching this video, wherever they're watching it from, to pop in the chat some ice-breaking tips? That would be great. Anyway, don't forget what we're doing here on a Sunday in Success Strategies. We're talking about an amazing ice sculpture that I saw in Birmingham, and we're talking about the tips and hints that I've been inspired by ice. So number four, have you ever heard of the term ice in case of emergency? Now, if you've never heard of this, this is a tip that people have with mobile phones or with address books, or if you've got a diary or a journal book, and somebody, you need to leave a number for somebody to contact, to get in contact with in case of emergency. And what people actually put in their phone is ICEy, as in the name, and then the number. And then if people can access the phone, they know who to call, and in case of emergency. What an amazing tip! And I'm sure it has saved lives, and I'm sure it's helped worried families. I'm sure it's just a simple little thing that you could maybe just make sure people that you work with or that you're around with that have a number. And obviously, you've asked the person permission if they're going to be your ICE person, your in case of emergency person, where you could store that so people could see. Maybe simply if you carry a wallet, just on a little card in your wallet, ICE in case of emergency, name of the person and the number, and put that in your wallet. And then if anything happens, if something happens and somebody discovers your wallet, or you need help and need support, it's there, and somebody could be trusted. You could they could call you in case of emergency. Who would have thought, wouldn't it? This ice sculpture has come up with all these ideas. And the last thing I want to celebrate is ice. Now, ice for me, ice, the best bit of ice, the best type of ice for me is 2 squares of ice in a lovely cold drink. Maybe a gin and tonic, maybe. Ice in a drink for me is fantastic because it's a sensational thing. It makes me come to my senses. So when I drink some gin and tonic with 2 ice cubes in, there's always that feeling of refreshment. There's always that feeling. You feel the cold glass. You can taste it on your lips. It makes the drink cold. It makes it taste better, I think. So what is this about? Tip 5 is not about drinking gin and tonic, by the way. Tip 5 goes back to, I suppose, what we said right at the start about living life and taking those moments. Number 5 is about enjoying the moments, and enjoying the moments with all your senses. So, for me, it's ice, it's that cold. So I don't know about you, but I love when you have pudding, when you have some dessert, when you have apple pie, you have hot apple pie. I love ice cream with it. I love that hot and cold sensation. Some people hate that, but I love it. Or Christmas. Have you ever had Christmas pudding, right? Get Christmas pudding and you have ice cream on top of a hot Christmas pudding. Have you ever had Christmas pudding in July with ice cream? We always store a Christmas pudding in the garage, so it's nice and dark and cold, and we store one, and we purposely have it in July with some ice cream on top. It's just a treat. But back to the sensation of number 5 is that number 5 is about enjoying the moment and engaging all your senses in the moment. So if you really want to remember a memory, if you really want to remember a memory, see it in the mind's eye, or when you're there, look around for the colours, look around for the shapes, look around for how things look against other contrast, look around for the dark and the light. Just look around and store that memory. Listen to what's happening around. Are there birds singing? Is there music playing? Is there no music? Is it still and peaceful? How can you store that magical memory into your memory bank? How does it feel? Do you actually touch things? So I've just touched my computer and it's made it all wobbly. Sorry about that. But when you touch, do you actually feel things? Do you touch things to remember? Do you use your smell? Your smell is a really strong sensory input. Do you smell? Do you take on that smell of things around? So ice, to remember using all those senses. So, your eyes, your ears, your nose. Do you taste? What do you taste? How do you taste it? Do you really taste your food, or do you put it in and don't taste it? Have you ever got a really lovely piece of dark chocolate, and only a tiny bit? Pop it on your tongue and just leave it on your tongue if you can, and just relish the taste. And brilliant. So think about how you can store information. And where's this come from? Well, this is tip number 5 from my ICE list of sensation. Ice is a sensation. Some people have a sensation on their teeth with ice, which isn't very nice, but other people, put an ice cube in your mouth and let it melt. Have you ever done that? A little bit of ice in your mouth and just let it melt, and just take the time for it to melt. Isn't that a great way of ice meditation? Just made up something different there. Anyway, I'm going to rush off now because I've got some things to do, and I think I've